Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we're tackling a topic that is absolutely vital, super practical, and honestly, a little bit nerve-wracking for most people. Today, we're diving into your legal rights in the U.S. during police interactions. Now, for this explainer, I want you to play along with a little scenario. Picture me as a veteran defense lawyer, and you're my brand new client sitting right across my desk. I'm going to give you the ultimate, straightforward briefing on exactly what to do when those flashing lights go on in your rearview mirror. Okay, let's dive into our core question today. Do you have to answer police questions? It's a fundamental know your rights concept, but the actual real-world application of it, that's something most folks completely misunderstand. I want you to really let this question sink in. Police ask you questions. Do you actually have to answer them? I mean, it sounds simple enough, right? But imagine the actual scenario. You're just driving home, minding your own business, and suddenly, boom, you see those red and blue lights in your rearview mirror. Your heart rate absolutely spikes. The officer walks up to your window, leans in, and starts rattling off questions. In that specific, high-pressure moment, do you legally have to answer what they're asking you? This is the ultimate question of our explainer today. And let me tell you, knowing the absolute factual answer to this can literally save you from accidentally turning a routine traffic stop into a total legal nightmare. Section 1. The Police Question Dilemma. Navigating the Initial Panic.
So, before we even touch the law, we've got to talk about human nature. As your designated defense lawyer for today, I can tell you right now that the law doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in the real world where, frankly, human beings get scared. When those lights flash, your body triggers an instant fight or flight response. You're suddenly thrust into this highly stressful, inherently intimidating dynamic. As our source material plainly states, most people panic and start talking way too much. Why? Well, because as humans, when we feel intimidated, we just want to smooth things over, right? We want to be helpful, we want the authority figure to like us and just let us go. So the officer comes to the window and asks a classic question, like, do you know how fast you were going back there, or where are you heading in such a hurry tonight? And most folks, in their absolute panic, just start babbling. They say things like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, officer, I was just keeping up with traffic. I might have been going slightly over the limit, but I'm just running late to pick up my kids. Boom. You just talked way too much. You literally just confessed to speeding. You let the panic completely dictate your mouth.
Section 2. Your right to silence. You don't have to answer everything. Now that we know our natural instinct is to panic and overshare, we need to counter that instinct with some cold, hard legal facts. You have fundamental protections in the United States. But listen to me, those protections are utterly useless if you don't actively choose to use them. By definition, the right to refuse means that in many situations, you are not required to answer unnecessary questions from police officers. I want you to really notice that word unnecessary. While you generally have to comply with basic, standard legal requirements, handing over your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance during a traffic stop, you are absolutely not required to be an open book about your evening plans. You don't have to tell them where you're coming from, where you're going, or your personal opinions on your driving speed. Look, the officer's job is to investigate. Your job is to protect yourself legally. And the absolute best way to do that is to recognize your right to refuse to get sucked into a casual, wide-ranging interrogation on the side of the road. Section 3. The biggest mistake you make, the danger of over-explaining. Okay, if I'm sitting right across the desk from you as your defense attorney, this is the exact part where I lean in and look you right in the eye. We've established you have the right to stay silent, but the reality, almost nobody actually uses it. Instead, they fall straight into the trap of over-explaining. Our sources are incredibly clear on this point. When you panic and try to explain yourself, you accidentally create problems. Think of a police interaction like a really high-stakes game of poker. When you over-explain, it's like you're showing all your cards completely face up on the table and literally giving the dealer permission to use them against you. You might think you're talking your way out of a situation, but let me tell you, 99 times out of 100, you're talking your way into a much bigger one. You're accidentally admitting fault, you're contradicting yourself, or you're just handing the officer probable cause to investigate you further. The only winning hand here is to stay calm to protect yourself. You have to ground yourself, recognize that feeling of panic, and just choose not to play the game. Section 4. What you should say. The exact phrase to use. It's one thing to know you shouldn't babble, right? But you actually need a script when an authority figure is standing there staring at you, waiting for an answer. How do you smoothly transition from blind panic to legal protection? Well, that script is incredibly simple. I choose to remain silent. I want you to memorize this. Seriously, write it on a sticky note, burn it into your brain. When the officer asks you, do you know why I pulled you over, or where are you coming from tonight, your response is not to argue. It's not to be snarky or clever. Your response is to politely, calmly, and clearly state, I choose to remain silent. That is the whole shebang. It's polite, it's legally rock solid,
And it completely shuts down the fishing expedition without being combative. It explicitly invokes your rights in a way that the courts actually recognize.
Section 5. Staying safe and calm. Strict boundaries of the right. As your lawyer today, I have to give you a serious warning. Invoking your right to silence is not some magic, invisible shield that lets you do whatever you want. The protection of the law only covers you if you act within some very strict rules of engagement. Number 1, stay calm and clear. If you scream, "I choose to remain silent," while wildly waving your arms around, you're just escalating the situation. Number 2, remain respectful. A simple yes, sir, or no, ma'am goes a really long way. Number 3, don't argue or act aggressively. The side of the highway is not a courtroom. You are absolutely not going to win a legal argument with an officer on the street. Save those arguments for me, your lawyer, to use in front of an actual judge. And finally, the most critical, absolute non-negotiable point. Never physically resist officers. If you try to pull away, if you refuse to step out of the car when legally ordered, if you physically resist in any way, shape, or form, you immediately void your protections and you're committing a brand new crime. Your power lies entirely in your respectful silence, not in physical defiance. Which brings us to our final, deeply important question of this explainer. Knowing your rights protects you, but will you actually remember to stay silent under pressure? We've gone through the whole playbook. You know that initial wave of panic is coming. You know the exact polite phrase to use, and you know the absolute requirement to stay calm and never, ever physically resist. But here's the thing. Legal knowledge is only as good as your ability to execute it when the adrenaline hits and those red and blue lights are flashing right in your eyes. So my final challenge to you, my brand new client, is to internalize this so deeply that calm silence just becomes your absolute default instinct. Thank you so much for joining me for this critical breakdown. Take a deep breath, remember your script, and stay safe out there.